Hello, Anita, and thank you for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate the time that you've given for this interview for my graduate class. It's funny, I couldn't think of anyone who would be better to do this with me.
Well, thanks for having me, Dion. It's always great to catch up with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And for the sake of honesty, I want to just ask you for your permission to record. I am recording now, but I'll actually stop if you want me to. But for this assignment, for anything that you might quote or anything that might help for my assignment, so I just want your permission if that's possible.
No, it's fine.
Okay, great. Let's get started because I know you've had a long day already leading your teams. So, what exactly it is that you do, Miss Anita? You froze. Are you still
You
there?
did. I don't know which one of us did, but yeah, it definitely froze, but we're back
Okay.
now.
All right. So what exactly it is that you do? What is your job title?
I am a communications coordinator for the government in the town that I live in. So, communications coordinator to put it simple, but a lot goes into that title for sure.
Okay, can you explain what some of those things might entail exactly?
Well, I am a public information officer, and typically, what a public information officer does is you're the voice or the representation for your organization, particularly if something happens, like in the sense of a crisis in local government. We may have an emergency that happens. We're the ones who communicate with the media. We serve as a liaison between the different parties and the different stakeholders in the community as well. We issue any internal and external communication to keep the public abreast of what's going on in our particular organization. In my case, that would be my county. And just handle any communications duty. Often you work closely with marketing and advertising and just public relations for your organization.
Okay, so you lead a relatively small, cohesive team, or is it kind of a larger team?
Ideally, it would be a large team, but you end up working across departments. And so you are a bigger team. But my team is 7 people. And that is small for a county our size because we're a couple of 100,000 people. But you often have different people with different skill sets, or you learn new skill sets. And so a small team does a lot.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned skill set because that is something that's really hard pressed on my mind. So I'm just kind of curious. Can you describe real quick what exactly is your leadership style, your particular leadership style, and how you lead and guide your teams?
Well, I will say that I find myself, depending on the situation, I vacillate across all of them, as needed, and it depends on who I'm leading in the team. But I'd say my natural inclination is to lead toward being more of a servant leader or, that participative style where I like to get the feedback from my team. I like to tell them what's going on. I join them in the work as well, and so I would say that's my go-to. That's who I am at the core. But I do admit that that doesn't always work. It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to be more assertive, and sometimes it's let's not ask any questions right now. Let's just get it done. Here's the task or whatever. But I think the mark of a good leader is recognizing that you don't have to stay in one lane. You really do have to lead for what the situation is. And depending on what's going on, it may call for you to do something different than even your what comes to you naturally.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about that a moment ago because I've developed as a leader where I used to be more hardcore, more of an authoritative type of individual, crack the whip, particularly when I worked in retail. but I found that I had very poor outcomes in the long run. In the short run, you seem like you're getting things done, but in the long run, you end up hurting your morale. And now I found myself to be more of a situational leader, more of a person that, like like you sort of mentioned, you have to sort of make adjustments and be able to have that adaptability for any particular situation that might arise. So maybe coaching as well, but certainly a situational leader. And, but yeah. So great, great. So I'm glad that you were able to give me. I guess what I'm a little curious about is what I mean, because how long have you been in leadership? I'm just curious.
Majority of my career, it's been over 25 years now.
Okay, so
I
a quarter
have
of a century.
led teams in some form, and it's not without its challenges, but yes, I've been in leadership for over 20 years.
Now, do you think that your leadership style has changed over your career? Is it a straight line, or is the trajectory just a little bit different versus to when you first got into the game?
It's definitely different. I mean, if you talk to someone and they tell you that nothing about their leadership has changed, then I wonder they probably are more authoritarian or they're tone deaf because as you mentioned, it's important. Often leadership is situational, and you sometimes will find that you have to lead different people on the same team differently. And so, yeah, that I would say that's been an adjustment for me. I have always been in roles that challenged me, been recruited to careers or at least in sectors of my career that maybe I didn't have any experience in. And so coming in as the leader on paper, but understanding that I don't have the experience of those who are on my team, that requires a different level of humility, but also willingness to not always lead from experience, but leading in the sense of trusting the experience of your team. So in the beginning, I was young. I mean, I was under 30, I guess, when I first started leading, and it was more of new community, new organization, new everything. And so I was in a place of just soaking up everything I could. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't make decisions, that you don't have to shy away from making decisions, especially those management type decisions you're expected to make. But from the time of me entering my career and being young and a little bit timid in just my abilities and in my career to now, after 20 plus years, I know what I know. And I also am aware that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so I'm willing to ask questions and not feel like it makes me less of a leader or less of a manager if I defer to someone else. What I've learned is the best managers realize that they don't have to know it all. They just have to be smart enough to have people around them who are knowledgeable in those areas and navigate those pieces the best way they possibly can. So that's how I've changed. Where before I was probably trying to get out there and just learn everything I could because I don't want to appear to be weak or like I know less than the people I work with. And now I'm just like, no, you're here because of what you know. So if you know it, I don't have to know it all. I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to have conversations. I know enough to recognize when something's missing, but I expect you to be the subject matter expert, and that's the value you bring to this team. That doesn't diminish me as a leader. That actually gives me more time and energy to be able to manage or oversee the department without working so much in it. Early on, I was trying to work so hard in it and be one of them. And when you're trying to do that, you have less time and less energy to make bigger picture decisions because you're so close to it. And so
Gotcha.
that's the difference between me in the beginning and how my leadership has changed over the years.
Now, when you're working with some of the more experienced team members who might even know a little bit more than you, that might understand the game, may have a little bit more gravitas in that particular field of discipline. I would imagine you had to do a little bit of soul searching, kind of put away that ego. If you had an ego at that time, I'm not sure if you did or at that time, but certainly when you're first getting into leadership, there are all these different expectations from people in the higher ups and the heavy weight that we bear on our own shoulders as leaders. So I'm thinking about leadership in the grand scheme of things. So let's think about it because it never starts initially with the person. A lot of times it comes from the people who teach us. Not, I know you just sort of spoke about the individuals that you might have worked for, I mean, worked with, people who might have worked for you. But I'm also curious about the individuals who might have been your mentors or maybe possible books you might have read about leadership that could have possibly advanced you to where you are, at least did light speed to where you are today.
Well, I did. Yeah, I'll have to be honest. A lot of the books that I've read about leadership came from the perspective of being a business owner and more along the entrepreneurial side. I have to be honest, outside of my academic studies and what I read to be well versed in my career, I've read books like Think and Grow Rich and Built to Last and The E Myth Revisited. These are all books that teach you about leadership, but they also teach you about creating systems
I'm
and
sorry. I'm
having a
sorry, Anita.
long haul.
I'm sorry, Anita. I can't, for some reason, I can't see what's on the screen. What does the minute say on that's remaining? Does it say how many minutes are remaining?
I don't. It
Okay.
doesn't
Okay.
tell. Yeah, when it gets down to a low amount, it's going to flash large on the screen, I believe.
Okay.
But right
All right.
now,
I
I
see
can't
something
see.
saying some minutes, but I can't really see it right now. Okay, so well, I'll try to pick up the pace. I had some different questions for you, but I might skip a few questions that I had early prepared in my mind. So, all right, so what aspects of your leadership style do you feel that are most effective?
I think, especially when you're working with people who are experienced already, which I've always been in positions where I was brought in and wasn't necessarily the expert in the area, but I was brought in for my ability to collaborate and bring together different schools of thought. My leadership style of working with people, there are so many people, if they're managers, they're wanting to tell everyone to do something. And so it has served me well to be a person who joins my team in the work. I think that's gone well because whether you want to believe it or not, you come in from the outside, maybe you're going to be leading people who applied for the job you're in. They have a little bit of resentment or a little, they're feeling a little sensitive because they didn't receive the job. And so you come in, they're sizing you up. They want to know, how did this person get it over me? What do they have that I didn't have? So they're judging you, even if you don't think they're judging you, they are judging you.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
they are just waiting to see what does this person have? Like, why did they pick this person? And when you can come in and not treat them any differently and come in and show that you're about togetherness and not division and don't feed into what can sometimes become the petty and the office politics, and you roll your sleeves up and work with them and they see you as a person who is not threatened by what they know, but you're willing to ask them and lean on their expertise, you tend to gain the respect sooner than if you come in trying to have a heavy hand and prove something to the people there that you're somehow worthy. So that served me well over the years. Just my ability to be one of them, but then make hard decisions when it's time as well. Because a lot of people want to be in leadership, but they're not prepared to do that.
Got you. You know, in my classes, I had a previous class, organizational behavior, and my current leadership development. You know, when you talked about politicking, yeah, that's a major factor in heads bump, and of course, you have people who might be good leaders, but they aren't the assigned leader by the entity, by the company that you're working for. So sometimes people do, rub not necessarily shoulders, but they sort of bump toward against each other. It's like rock. What is that old saying? Iron sharpens iron, or something like that. And you can have a great a unit around you, but if you don't mesh well together, that could be problematic. So,
Mhm.
is is there a part of your style that you hope your team would notice and model, sort of emulate some of the things that you've done? Is there anything that you hope that they can sort of absorb and emulate and mirror what you do?
Yeah, I come from a sports background, and one of the things you learn is, and it wasn't a sport where the individual was able to cause the team to have success, at least not the majority of the time. So I learned very early that every finger on the hand has a role and it is important. And it doesn't matter who gets the credit. So I would like to think that my team recognizes or takes from how I lead as you said at the beginning, leave the ego outside because I can recall one of my best individual games where I just had history breaking numbers, but my team lost.
Mm,
So what I take from that is which one do I felt horrible, so that wasn't good. But I've also had some of the least historic games, and the team just had the best game overall. And I'll take that any day. And I take that into anything I do with leadership as well. So I would like to think that my team would see that I'm not always looking for the credit. I don't mind saying so and so had a great idea. Good job with that. Oh my gosh.
team
And
player.
then
Yeah.
running. Yes. And so when people are like that, I think successful leaders, they're not worried about who gets the credit. And they also understand the best way to get what you want is to help others get what they want. And so that's what I would like to think that anyone who has been under my leadership or just working with me, period, would take from how I conduct myself.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it is important for your staff or your personnel to be able to because they're watching, whether you realize it or not, they are watching, and sometimes they will mimic. And depending on the nature of the business, it's basically the culture of everyone's taking 5 breaks a day, 10 breaks a day. It's one thing when the employees are doing it, it's another thing when they see leadership doing it, and so they'll take it to the next level often. So I think it's important that we do have a strong ethical value, as far as being ethical as a leader, and even in this class, we talk a little bit about ethical leadership. So, I think that's important to be able to not only uh, be uh, be a pillar of that structure holding it together, but also be a standard bearer because people actually respect you as a person, and they'll feel that you are worthy enough to be followed. So that's a that's great. That's real great. I'm um, I'm trying to think of when I think about leadership, I think about a lot of different factors like adaptability, for example. Um, Are there any situations, and I'm sure there are, where you had to quickly adapt, and was there any resistance to change from your team members that were on your team?
Well, the nature of my business and my career is you're always having to adapt. I always tell the team the name of our game is flexibility and adaptability because our job is to relay information and often things change on a dime. And so just when you think you know what's happening, particularly in the time of a crisis, you don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how you need to change course, all of that. And we also have to respond to the messaging of
All right, it looked like we had a slight interruption with our services. We got shut off. So, and I know you're pressed for time. I'm on a timetable too. And again, I want to say thank you for taking your time for this interview, Anita. And real fast, we had an opportunity to kind of talk to each other after we kind of got cut off. And you also shared a lot of different things, some other aspects that it'll be great information that I'll be able to throw into my paper. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up as fast as possible because I know you have other things that you need to get done as well. So I'm curious about the people who have followed your lead, the followers, their behaviors, or so what type of follower basically is what I'm asking. What sort of follower are people who you like to lead, or at least the feedback that you've gotten from those employees that's meaningful to you? So, in other words, the feedback that you've gotten from the people that you lead, what sort of what sort of feedback have you gotten from them, as far as your leadership style, how you do things? Have there been any bumps in the road with them? Like, has there been any power struggle, with those employees that you lead?
over the course of my career. Yes, I've had all that. I mean, you are always going to have someone who thinks you should be doing it differently, how they, from what you're doing. Particularly, I've had employees who, if they feel like they're doing more than the others, and you have to be reminded it's not always a level playing field where you are expecting everyone to have the same work because you both have different responsibilities. So there may be a lull in someone else's work when there isn't in yours just because of the nature of your work, but you'll always have someone wanting you to be, they'll cite that as not fair or wanting you to be more tough on someone else. People are full of ideas. I mean, they're never without ways that you could be doing things differently. Also, I mentioned the feedback of just knowing that sometimes just because you're in a position doesn't mean you'll have everyone's support, but they still deserve your leadership. And so
Mm.
I've had times where I knew people were trying to undermine my responsibility or things that I had assigned to the team. And I had to have conversations with them to let them know that I recognized it. Because what happens is if you allow those little cancers to fester, you lose control of everything. It's a horrible morale. It'll affect morale and
Mm.
reduce it. It also, you start to get all these different factions in your department, and you want a cohesive group, but then everybody starts doing their own thing, so it can be dangerous. I've had, for sure, it's always adaptable. I always say with a team, you can develop a nice chemistry, but if you change even one person, you now have to find a new chemistry because it changes everything
Yeah.
within a team. And so there's constant adaptability because you're in new situations together. Life happens to everybody. So even if you're in a good groove, somebody's off one day. And so there's adaptability there. There's an adaptability. We're dealing with this right now, change in leadership. When you have a change in leadership, they often bring in their own people, their own way of doing things. They want to surround themselves with people they're comfortable with. And so that requires change and adaptability. And so it's a true statement when people say the only inevitable is that it's going to change is going to happen. And the earlier in your career you learn to adapt to that, excuse me, and not take it personally, the better you will be because often there are decisions being made that are beyond your control. But what is in your control is how much you allow it to affect you and knock you off your game or not. So that's what I focus on. I just tell everybody, look, change is going to happen. I even talk about that in my interview process. I'm looking for the person who understands that you may not always like it, but we need to keep moving. How have you? That's one of my questions. Talk to me about a time where you had to, something happened, you didn't like it. How did you handle it? Because
Mm,
I want that person. I don't want there to be any secrets. Things are going to change. Things are going to be last minute. Things are going to be unexpected. You're going to be under crazy timelines and you're expecting to pivot on a dime. Are you the person that can handle that? Or are you going to be an anchor for this team and keep us from moving forward?
got you. Yeah, it's interesting. It sounds like you're the type of person who's very open for suggestions, even positive or quite possibly not exactly always positive feedback from your team members that can actually build on, you're growing, they're growing, you're growing, your entire team are growing as individuals. And I think about some of the things I've done over the years because I used to be in complete opposition of what I currently am. And I often think about now I'm more of an open door policy type of person. You sound like you're very candid in your delivery when you speak to your team members. You like to give clear and concise direction. And I think that is also a positive thing because you don't have your people questioning who they are as a person, where their stances are, their position, not only with you and how you view them, but also with the company, and that they actually add value to your team and your overall goals. So I do think a leader who can take suggestions, positive feedback, we'll just say that, even if it's from a subordinate, I think that's really important. At least it's helped me in the past, and I'm sure you've experienced a little bit of that on your own as well.
Absolutely. I think great ideas and good information can come from anywhere. In fact, I don't even look at them as subordinates. I just happen to have the title, but their knowledge, their experience, their lived experience is not beneath me necessarily. And so I think wherever a good idea can come from, I'm open to it. If it works, let's do it. Because I realize that I don't have all the ideas. I didn't get that gift where I'm the only one with good ideas.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we would need a team. But
Well,
we
just let
have
me,
teams work and function so well because we all bring something different. And if you start shutting off the ability for that information, that feedback to flow freely, you're limiting what the team can really be.
Okay. Yeah, and you negatively impact the overall creativity and, the functionality of your teams, your goals, and like you stated earlier, the overall morale, it just goes down into the toilet. So yeah, it sounds like you also allow your team because you seem like you allow them to give you feedback to help you help them because one of the things I like to say is in order to lead you have to be able to have a willingness to serve, and like you said, you have kind of more of a servant, you do have more of a servant leadership style, and that means that you also have to sort of create a space for that feedback. Now, do you generally sit down and say, "Hey, John and Jill, tell me what's on your mind," or do you allow them to give suggestion cards randomly so they might because they might fear reprisal? How do you do that?
Well, I'm in communications. I lead a team of communicators. They are not at a loss for words.
Understood.
So,
Understood.
so they usually they are not shy about telling you what's on their minds. And but that's okay. I mean, I've actually had people come to me and go, I remember before I started leading this particular team, this current team, everybody was just like, "Whoo, this team you have here," because they are so willing to share what's on their minds and opinionated. And prior to me being in this role, there had been four others in a 5 year period.
Oh, wow.
And so I have lasted the longest
How long how
with
how long have you been with this leading this particular team?
4.5 years now.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
the person before me was, I think she made the 2 year mark. And there was a long-standing person who had been there 20 plus years. And after his retirement, they had had four different, including two of the current team members who served as interim. So they've been through a lot of turnover, and everyone in the organization knows them to be strong willed, opinionated, giving a lot of feedback, and what others would consider a problem. And so coming in, they know I had individual meetings with all of them. I wanted to know what was important to them. I talked to them about what was important to me. I didn't come in changing things. I also didn't come in accepting everyone else's viewpoint of them, although everyone had given me the rundown of this is what this person's going to do, this is how this person is. I allowed their behavior to show me who they were. And they know me to be a person you can share your feedback and then I'm going to make a decision. I have a standard answer. Thank you for that feedback. Doesn't mean I'm accepting it, but I heard you.
Mm.
I heard
Yeah.
you. It doesn't mean that I'm going to always go with what you want, but you can always share your feedback.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen that happen a few times, but sometimes where we think that, oh, this will be a problem child. And I think you said you were in the sports arena at one time. And, we've all seen guys and gals who have played on a particular team, a particular sport, and they're riding the pine. They are sitting on the bench, and you're like, wow, they did so great in college. And that could be a number of factors why they're not getting any playing time. It could be the coach hate them. It could be maybe they have five all-stars already playing on the team. And it could be that they don't mesh very well with that particular offensive system. And then, but you'll see that one player get traded and they'll go to another team and they'll be in the next All-Star game or, they'll be in the six man, the six man, that kind of thing. So a lot of times we really can't get certain information from individuals based off of, off of previous experiences from other people, from other leadership because those leaders they have a different leadership style where those individuals may have not meshed well, and those people might have, maybe clammed up. They, for different reasons, different factors why people do what they do. But they might be one of your all-stars. They might have been one of the diamonds in the rough that you just had the opportunity to tap into yet. So anyway, I'm gonna try to wrap this up real fast. Only got maybe one or two more questions for you. And I think one of the questions I was really thinking about this long and hard yesterday before I asked you for this meeting was, is there anything that you're still working on as a leader? Is there because you've developed, you've blossomed, uh, you've turned from a small pony to a stallion, if you will, and now you're in your stride, and you're winning, and you're doing so many good things, and but there's always room for improvement, right?
Oh, of
And
course.
I was just wondering, as a leader who's been doing what you do for, like we said, a quarter of a century, is there anything that you're still working on as a leader?
There are a couple of things. One is I tend to have the expectation. My career has always been one where I was hired for my expertise. My my leaders, my supervisors never micromanaged me. I came and went as I needed. And so I expect when I hire someone, when I'm on a team with someone, that you are doing your job, that I don't have to look over your shoulder. If something is due, you know it. We do have our meetings, our check ins, but there's this phrase of you have to inspect what you expect.
Hmm.
And so, what I'm working on is everyone doesn't work in a free flowing environment. And I have to change that. And some people need the check ins. Some people need, I hate the idea of a thumb on them. I'm not that leader, but I have to work on, we talked about situations. It's not just situational, it's also based on the people you're working with. And you have to know how to get to them, how to get the most out of each person on your team. Excuse me. So one person may be okay doing it and taking off, and you don't have to say anything to them. Another one won't maximize their time if you're not checking in more frequently. Excuse me.
You okay?
The one time I don't have water. Excuse me. But I am definitely working on away from my natural tendency, which
Hmm.
is, excuse me, hold that thought. Sorry about that.
No problem. You're all right?
So I'm definitely uh, working on, or I'm intentional about recognizing the different personalities and the different styles, even in my team. Even though we're a team, we don't all function the same.
Hmm.
And so looking at individuals and giving them what they need, where I think, hey, I'm letting you be an adult. I don't like being micromanaged, so I'm not going to do that to you.
Hmm.
Where that person may be taking it as she never checks in with me because
Yeah.
they're from an experience, a background, or they have a work style where that to them says you care.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
checking in with them more often. So that's definitely something that continues to be something that I'm aware of and that I work on because it causes me to step outside of how I like to be managed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Some people need definitely function a lot better by having full autonomy over what they're doing. where you as the leader, some people you only need to check once a week.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a daily thing, and then there are others where that might be a little less functioning, or maybe not less functioning, but they have that need. They want that connection with their leaders
Yeah.
to make them feel like you're at least rolling up your sleeves and being actually involved. Otherwise, they think that you're hands off and they'll say you're a bad leader.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Any, anyway, Anita, I know that you're on time constraints. I am extremely thankful for you giving me this opportunity to well, you've given me the opportunity to be able to finish this particular assignment, and everything that you've shared with me has not only been helpful, but it's been incredibly insightful. I think that I've gained a lot from this conversation. I'm glad that we had it. Is there anything else about leadership or your journey that you would like to share or add before we finally wrap up here?
I would say to anyone, and particularly you know, you're finishing up your program. I know you have leadership experience and lived experience now, but I would say to anyone, leadership is not a destination, it's a journey. And it's not always about what you're doing to others. It's about who you're becoming in the process. If you're fortunate enough to become a leader, you are given charge over other people's experiences and you're making decisions for the group of people you are leading. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, but you have to be willing to make the decision. And so that's not just about your job, that's about who you become in the process. You're taking a little bit of all those experiences, and those are shaping you into the person you hopefully want to be, a person you like. And so don't be so power drunk or thoughtful about leadership, meaning you're in charge, that you're missing the lessons that you need to grab for yourself. Because you're teaching not just them, but you. I mean, everything we experience becomes a lesson for our own lives as well. So we can't be so busy sharing advice and requiring things of others that we don't adhere to ourselves and that we don't grow and develop from.
Got you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm definitely absorbing that, and I'm learning quite a bit from these courses. I have to admit, it is tough, but you know, in anything dealing with leadership, it's going to stretch you and force you to kind of step out of your comfort zone, and that's always a good thing. It's always a good thing. Again, thank you, the legend, Miss Anita Maxwell. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time.
You're
And
welcome.
it's been a treat. All my treat.
Oh,
Thank you.
you're welcome, Dion. Anytime, and good luck to you and the rest of your coursework there.
All right. Well, thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.